right, let's explore some more autistic history and the Autism Wars. Yeah. And this is part 42 in a series. All right, so we are still in Autistic Network International, and Jim Sinclair is describing an experience of autistics gathering and socializing at an alt-retreat in their article that they published in 2005, and I shared part of that in the last video, so I'm going to pick up here and finish the rest. What was going on? What was this observation? So it says here, as I watched, more and more people brought their trays to tables that already had people sitting at them. As the tables filled up, some people took chairs from unoccupied tables and brought them to squeeze around the full ones. In similar settings, in NT, neurotypical society, autistic people would be more likely to avoid. Yes, I absolutely do that myself. Avoid the occupied tables and to seek out the empty ones. What an incredible observation. This next section is titled Decompression and Re-entry. Some of the same phenomena that had occurred in small gatherings of autistic people and on ANIL have also been observed at alt-retreat. While none of these experiences is universal for all autistic people, these are some of the things that do occur with some frequency in the ANI community. First one, many autistic people need to know ahead of time what they will encounter and what will be expected of them. It's important to have an opportunity for people to ask questions. I have had extensive email correspondences with online friends about what it would be like to visit my house. People planning to attend alt-retreat often have a lot of questions about anything from general social conditions to minutia about physical space. The detailed rules for ANIL and the alt-retreat orientation information grew out of both a desire to avoid reoccurrence of past negative experiences and out of the common need for autistic people to have clear structure in order to feel comfortable. Do you see them? They are the worst. That little fly. I don't trust him. Alright, most early ANI members had this need for structure and for clear explanations of boundaries and expectations. As ANI has grown, we have been joined by more people who have different responses to rules, including some people who resent the concept of having any rules at all. Balancing the needs of different autistic people remains an ongoing challenge. So the next bullet point says, while many autistic people do have immediate positive reaction to being in autistic space, occasionally at alt-retreat, approximately one person every year or two, someone finds a sudden absence of NT social expectations so disorienting that it results in kind of a explosive decompression. Usually people who have this reaction are people who have been particularly strongly indoctrinated into passing for NT, to the extent that when the NT social pressures are gone and they don't have to wear their NT masks anymore, they no longer know what to do or even who they are. They may feel panicked or simply frozen into paralysis. The good news is that when this sort of strong disorientation occurs, it is temporary and usually a prelude to a personal blossoming as the person reconnects with his or her suppressed self and forms a strong attachment to autistic community. Sometimes, as autistic people begin to understand autism as their natural way of being, they become angry about the things that have been done to them by people trying to make them more normal. Or they experience grief reactions over the things they've lost through not being allowed to develop self-understanding and self-acceptance earlier. In rejecting intolerant NT prejudices that define NT characteristics as good and autistic characteristics as bad, some autistic people react with anti-NT prejudice and start defining all autistic characteristics and autistic people as good and all NT characteristics and people as bad. Fortunately, NT bashing on A and IL or at Autistic is generally met with prompt rebuttals and calls for tolerance by other autistic people. So, trying to, understandable though, and everything you thought about yourself was bad is not bad, and having to evolve through that phase, maybe that's one of the phases of self-awareness when you come into this. I'm not sure, but interesting that it's noted there. All right, so the next bullet point here is autistic immersion experiences, both at Autistic and in smaller gatherings of friends, are often followed by some degree of sadness, disorientation, and even depression upon returning to the NT world. Back out into the wilds, right? One person reported suffering a significant post-Autistic depression every year for the first several years as she attended Autistic. Eventually, she said the depression stopped. Says here, I think that the depression may be caused by the abrupt effect of saying goodbye and then having to go back to the world and thus abandon the AC part of the self. The realization that there would be more meetings helps to carry the AC essence inside even when the other ACs are far away. So even when your autistics and cousins are far away, you know that they're there, so you carry it with you, right? Helps. Some Autistic attendees have eased the separation by arranging to spend a day or two after Autistic with one or more autistic friends, sometimes sightseeing together and thereby re-entering the NT world in autistic company. So, kind of like a phasing back, yeah? So here in summary, it says, in the last 13 years, Autism Network International has grown from a small group of pen pals meeting for the first time in a small apartment to an international community of autistic people who meet online in small informal meetings in private homes and in our own communal space at Autistic. We have certain shared values in affirming the validity of our way of being. We have many common experiences, both with the experience of autism itself and with being autistic in a world of neurotypicals. We have a history of significant events experienced by our community. We have a dynamic, constantly evolving set of customs and rules growing out of our shared experiences and our common needs. We have certain terms, expressions, and in-jokes that are distinct to our community. We have children whose parents are helping them grow up knowing that it's okay to be autistic, knowing other autistic children and autistic adults, knowing that they're part of this community. And there's a little bit more of this, but I'll pick it up in the next video before we move on. We are at the end of this, except for that little bit, but thank you for exploring more autistic history with me and the Autism Wars.